grade, Mrs. Snyder here with you. Super excited to be back again for another video lesson with you. Today we're going to be talking about ensembles. And ensembles is kind of a fancy word for something that's not really super fancy. If you were here last year at a Cumberland Valley school in 4th grade, you all already participated in an ensemble. Your ensemble usually met once per cycle. If you were here at Winding Creek, we met on day 6 in the cafeteria. Since all of 4th grade was together, we needed a pretty big space. You might have met in an LGI room or maybe in the gym at your building, maybe on a different cycle day than day 6. What was that ensemble? All of 4th grade was together. Of course, chorus. Chorus is an example of a large ensemble. Sometimes you'll hear people use the word choir. It means the same thing. Choir, chorus can be used interchangeably. Can you think of an example of another large ensemble? Maybe one that uses instruments? Right, we also have band and orchestra. Band and orchestra. Now, those 3 ensembles, of course, are different because they all have different names, but can you think of something else besides the name that makes those ensembles different? Like maybe what type of performer would be attending each of those ensembles? I think the easiest is probably chorus or choir, right? People who are attending that are performers, who are singing. So if I'm going to a chorus rehearsal or a choir rehearsal, I'm not taking any instruments. I'm going and I'm singing with lots of other people who like to sing as well. Now, the difference between band and orchestra is a little bit tougher. So think about maybe band instruments versus orchestra instruments. Is there anything that kind of pops out at you right away? Some of my friends who play these instruments or played last year in 4th grade might know the answer to this question. So the difference between band and orchestra would be that orchestra has members of the string family, So violin, viola, cello, string bass, and harp would be present in an orchestra, but not in a band. So they're going to have the same other families like percussion, woodwind, and brass in both of the ensembles, band and orchestra, but then orchestra is going to get the strings, so band is not going to get strings. And I don't think I mentioned this at the beginning of the video, but ensemble is just another word for a group. So an ensemble is just a fancy word for a group, and in our case, we're talking about a group of performers. So again, those 3 ensembles will be chorus, band, and orchestra. Today, we're going to be focusing on the orchestra, and in the next 2 or 3 weeks, you're going to be talking about band and chorus. So today, we're talking just about the orchestra. If you were here in 4th grade last year, a lot of our elementary buildings took a field trip to the Forum in Harrisburg to see the Harrisburg Symphony Orchestra. Now, some schools had their field trip plans in May. So if you were a May school, then unfortunately you didn't get to attend this year, or last year, excuse me. But I do highly recommend looking up the Harrisburg Symphony Orchestra online on YouTube. They have a website. They have some amazing performances posted that you can watch from your couch. So if you didn't get to attend last year, that's a great way to kind of check them out. In 3rd grade, we talked about instrument families. So all of our instruments can be broken down into 4 different groups or families based on how they are played or how they make sound. Can you remember any of those instrument families? I said one of them a little bit earlier in the video. So there's 4 families. We have string, brass, woodwind, and percussion. So in the orchestra, we're going to have members of all 4 families present. Now we're talking about large ensembles today, so larger orchestras. If you were looking at smaller orchestras, they might not necessarily have as many instruments or all of the instruments that a larger orchestra is going to have. So again, those families in our orchestra would be string, brass, percussion, and woodwind. Okay, at this point, I'm going to ask you to pause this video and click on link number 1 in the description. There's going to be a couple links down there. Sometimes you have to click the show more button because if there's ads or things, sometimes the links will be hidden. So you always want to click on the show more so that you can see all of the links. So the first link that we're going to watch today is a video called George Meets the Orchestra. And you may have watched this already, but it's a great video for reviewing the families of the orchestra as well as what instruments go in each family. You're going to see some demonstrations of each of the instruments being played. This is just going to kind of refresh our memory about what instruments belong in the orchestra. I always love that video. I think George is such a cute little kid when he's talking about all of the different instruments. And then at the end, when he decides he doesn't want to play an instrument, he wants to be in charge. He wants to be the director or conductor. So I bet as you were watching that, you were able to identify a lot of the instruments even before they kind of told you what they were in the video. So that's awesome. You might even be signed up to play one of them this year with Mr. Ostrander via Zoom. The next video that we're going to watch, the next 2 or 3 videos, are just examples of orchestras, just so you can kind of see them play together, hear them play together. Some of the links that I picked include some close-ups, so the camera will kind of zoom in on 1 or 2 of the different sections. I would love for you to try to guess what instrument you're looking at or hearing. The next link we're going to be clicking on is link number 2 in the description, link number 2. And this is actually a song called Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen. This is one of my son's favorite songs. He loves to listen to this one, the Mamma Mia part, he calls it. And this is an awesome example because there is a viola solo. So sometimes in the orchestra, the viola can kind of be lost in with the violins and the cellos. And usually the violin gets the melody and the violin is kind of the star of the show. But in this one, viola is the star, and I love that about this piece. So please enjoy Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen with a viola feature. The last video that we're going to look at today is link 3, and this is an orchestra performing the music of Pirates of the Caribbean. So you might recognize some of the melodies that you're hearing. Again, this is a great video because it has a lot of close-ups where it'll kind of zoom in on each instrument. It zooms in on some of the percussion instruments in the back that maybe we don't get to look at a lot in school because some of them are super large and we don't have them at the elementary level. So see if you can guess what some of those larger percussion instruments are in this link of Pirates of the Caribbean. I hope you enjoyed those videos that we just watched, some great examples of orchestra. There are tons of other orchestra examples on YouTube if you have extra time and you want to look them up. We're going to take a look now at the orchestra seating chart, so you can kind of look and see where the instruments sit, what's the layout by instrument group. All right, we're looking here at an example orchestra layout. Remember now, this is not going to be an exact seating chart for every single orchestra. So what I mean by that is there's not necessarily going to be 4 cellos or 3 French horns or 1 bass drum. This is just an example of what a typical orchestra seating chart is going to look like. You'll notice that all of the string instruments are towards the front of the orchestra. The violins are broken up into 2 different groups, first violins and second violins. All that means is they're going to be playing notes that are a little bit different. So usually first violins are going to have a little bit higher notes, second violins are going to be a little bit lower, and then of course violas are going to be lower than that. If you look at the back of the orchestra seating chart, you'll see that's where the percussion is. Can you think of a reason why the percussion might be in the very back of the stage? The percussion is the loudest of the families, right? So some of those drums, bass drum, timpani, the bells, they're going to be super loud. So it's nice to have them in the back. That way they're not overpowering the quieter, softer instruments. Now, if you look in the center of the orchestra, you'll see our woodwind family. You may be noticing that there are not any alto saxophones. While an alto saxophone is a woodwind instrument, they are typically not included in orchestra. So, kind of like guitar is a string instrument, but we don't see it in orchestra, that's kind of the same deal with our alto saxophone. Behind our woodwind family, and kind of next to it, you'll see our brass. We've got our trumpets, trombones, French horns are there to the side. Cornet is similar to trumpet, and some orchestras will just have trumpets instead of cornets. I'm hoping that you also noticed that the orchestra is kind of in a half circle seating arrangement, and that is simply so that everyone can see the conductor or the director as they're standing in the middle. If you were in chorus last year, you probably had a similar arrangement where your risers were in an arc or they were angled so that you could see your music teacher who was directing. I hope you enjoyed learning about our first large ensemble today, the orchestra, and remembering those different instruments and families that belong in the orchestra. Next week, you're going to talk about band or chorus. Have a great day, fifth grade. I will see you guys later.